You are the only one with access to those accounts, Vanessa, so where is the 50,000? My father-in-law sneered across the boardroom. I stared at him. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird. I suddenly realized the trap he had set for me. My name is Vanessa, and I am 34 years old. For the last 5 years, I worked as the lead bookkeeper for my husband's family construction business. I did not come from a wealthy background like they did. To them, I was just the girl from the wrong side of the tracks who managed to marry into their dynasty. The air in their massive homes always felt suffocating to me. It smelled like expensive cologne and old, quiet resentment. They always looked down on me. They treated me more like the hired help than an actual daughter-in-law. But I was not rich or glamorous. I had something they did not expect. I had an absolute obsession with the truth and an eye for detail that never missed a single penny. If you have ever felt underestimated because of where you started, hit that subscribe button. I want to hear your story in the comments. Let us prove them wrong together. Make sure to click hype or like to show your support before we dive in. Let us go. The nightmare began on a random Tuesday morning. The office was quiet. The low hum of the massive industrial air conditioner was the only sound echoing in the empty hallway. The sharp smell of fresh printer ink and stale coffee hung in the air. My father-in-law, Richard, called a sudden meeting with my husband and my brother-in-law, the prized child of the family. The air in the conference room felt heavy and suffocating the second I walked in. The heavy leather chairs squeaked against the polished floor. Richard slammed a thick financial report onto the mahogany table. The sound cracked like a whip off the glass walls. I jumped in my seat. He declared that $50,000 was missing from the primary vendor accounts. Before I could even reach out to look at the paperwork, Richard pointed his thick finger directly at my face. He coldly accused me of embezzling the company money to pay off my own family's debts. He stood up abruptly. His chair scraped loudly against the floorboards. He leaned over the table. He said, "We trusted you with the books and you rob us blind." I denied it immediately. I told him there must be a mistake. I tried to explain the reconciliation process and how the accounting software tracked every single login. He did not listen. His face turned bright red. In a shocking move, he suspended me without pay right in front of the entire office staff. It was humiliating. The entire accounting department watched through the glass doors. I could feel their eyes burning into my skin. The silence outside the room was deafening. My cheeks burned with intense shame. He threatened to call the police by Friday if I did not quietly resign, sign a typed confession, and pay it all back. He slid a piece of paper across the table. It was already printed. He had planned this entire ambush. I looked at my husband for help. He just stared at his expensive shoes. The betrayal tasted like pennies in my mouth. I refused to sign it. I stood up on shaking legs and walked out of the room. The walk back to my desk felt like a mile. Every single employee stopped typing to watch me pack my favorite coffee mug and my framed photos into a cardboard box. The rustle of the cardboard was incredibly loud in the dead quiet room. I drove home in complete silence. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The betrayal did not stop at the office. Later that week, we had a mandatory family dinner at Richard's sprawling estate. The dining room smelled like roasted lamb and expensive red wine. My sister-in-law made loud, passive-aggressive jokes about my clothes. She laughed a high-pitched, grating laugh and said I must be shopping on the company dime. I felt absolutely sick to my stomach. I looked down at my expensive porcelain plate. The rich food tasted like ash on my tongue. In private, my husband refused to defend me. We stood in our bedroom later that night. The room felt freezing cold. He would not even look me in the eye. He sheepishly told me to just apologize and take out a personal loan to cover the missing cash so they could move on. He actually believed I did it. The man I married thought I was a common thief. I felt a cold, hard knot tighten in my chest. I realized I was completely alone in this massive house. I tried to log into the company network the next morning to clear my name. I sat at my home desk. The sharp clicking of my keyboard filled the quiet room. I found Richard had completely locked me out of the servers. He changed all the administrative passwords. Worse, he sent a mass email to the staff calling me unstable and a flight risk. I sat in my home office. The silence of the empty house pressed in on me like a physical weight. Despite the overwhelming humiliation, I refused to break down. I wiped my hot tears. I would not let them ruin my life. What they did not know was that I never fully trusted Richard and his erratic spending habits. Because of my background, I always protected myself. I knew how quickly people with money could turn on people without it. My sadness evaporated. It turned into a sharp, calculated focus. Every Friday afternoon, I made encrypted digital backups of the master ledger. I saved them on a private, hidden flash drive. I kept a secret paper trail of Richard's special expense authorizations locked in a safe deposit box downtown. I had damning evidence locked away safely. I had a plan they never saw coming. I realized I could not fight them blindly from the outside. I needed someone on the inside who knew exactly how they operated. I reached out to Greg. He was an ex-employee and former inventory manager. Greg was fired 2 years ago after Richard made him the scapegoat for missing building materials. We met at a rundown diner on the edge of town. The smell of stale coffee and fried food hung heavily in the air. The red vinyl booth squeaked loudly under my weight. Greg hated the family just as much as I did. He eagerly helped me connect the dots. We sat in that booth for hours. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like an angry wasp. Together, we matched the missing $50,000 to shell vendors that Richard and his prized son secretly set up. We traced the routing numbers on his old, humming laptop. My sadness was completely gone. Now, I only felt cold, hard determination. Meanwhile, the family grew incredibly arrogant. Thinking I was totally locked out and defenseless, Richard formally hired an aggressive external auditor. He wanted to make a very public show of my destruction. Richard bragged in the family group chat that the audit would be the final nail in my coffin. My phone vibrated on the table with his cruel messages. He thought he was untouchable. The tension reached a boiling point. I was completely ready for them. The final showdown took place in a formal legal setting at the family lawyer's massive downtown office. The smell of lemon furniture polish and bitter espresso filled the air. The heavy ticking of an antique wall clock was the only sound in the dead silence of the room. We met there to review the auditor's final report. Richard sat at the head of the long mahogany table. He looked incredibly smug. He wore a tailored suit and a confident smirk. He drummed his fingers loudly on the wood. He was waiting for the auditor to destroy me so he could hand me over to the police. My husband sat next to him. He stared at his hands and refused to look my way. The auditor walked into the room. His leather shoes clicked sharply against the hardwood floor. He was a tall man with a stern face. He glanced coldly at Richard. Then he walked right past him. He handed me a specific, thick manila envelope. The rough paper felt heavy and powerful in my hands. I opened it right there on the table. It contained the cross-referenced bank statements Greg and I secretly provided to the auditor days earlier. They proved the missing money was wired directly to Richard's offshore account to cover his massive gambling debts. I laid the damning evidence out for the lawyer to see. I spread the papers in a neat, perfect line. Richard turned pale. His smug smirk vanished instantly. He started screaming that the documents were fake. His voice cracked with pure panic. He slammed his fists on the table. The porcelain coffee cups rattled in their saucers. The auditor cut him off quickly. He stated with absolute authority that the FBI had already been notified of the wire fraud. The trap completely collapsed on him. The silence that followed was deafening. I packed my things that afternoon. I walked out on my spineless husband without shedding a single tear. The front door clicked shut behind me with a satisfying thud. The air outside felt crisp and incredibly clean. I took a deep breath. The family business went into a massive tailspin. Richard and his prized son faced a massive fraud investigation. Their reputation was ruined overnight. I started fresh. I opened my own independent bookkeeping firm. I am now completely in control of my own life. They thought I was just an easy scapegoat. They forgot one crucial rule. The person who balances the books holds all the cards. If your family ever took advantage of you financially or tried to make you the scapegoat, you know exactly how that feels. Subscribe and share your story in the comments. Click hype to help this video reach others who have been there and need the strength to fight back. Standing up for yourself is tough. If you have been there, subscribe and become part of our community. Let me know this story helped by clicking hype. And tell me where you are watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel.